The sky burned with fire as the pod fell from space. It spun wildly, trailing smoke through thick clouds. Below was a jungle world known only by numbers, X-97B. Most pilots avoided it. Some called it Monster's Home. Inside the pod, a small figure stirred. Her name was Kirill, though she didn't know that yet. She was young, no older than 6 by human years. Her skin shimmered like water under moonlight, and her large eyes blinked slowly in the dark. She was not born on this world. Her people had sent her here, not as a traveler, but as a secret. They were losing a war. They feared extinction. In desperation, they built pods like hers, each carrying a child designed to survive places no one else could. The pod hit the ground with a loud crash. Trees snapped. Dirt flew. Then silence. For hours, nothing moved. Then slowly, the pod cracked open. Kirill crawled out. She was hurt, but not badly. She looked around with wide eyes. The jungle was alive. Growling, chirping, humming. Strange plants glowed in the shadows. Vines moved like snakes. She whimpered. No one answered. She was alone. Days passed. Kirill survived because she had to. She found fruit that didn't poison her. She drank from puddles. She slept in hollow logs when the big things came out at night. She learned fast. One night, something huge crashed through the trees. It had many legs, long claws, and eyes like glowing stones. Kirill climbed high into the branches and watched. It passed below. Another time, she stepped on soft ground and sank up to her waist. She pulled free, covered in mud and shaking. That place became the trap ground, and she never went there again. Still, she cried sometimes. Not because she was weak, but because she remembered voices, soft ones, kind ones, and now there was only silence. Far away, on a nearby asteroid base, a man named Jax Varn listened to a signal on his scanner. He was human, tall and rough, with a face that had seen too many fights. He wore old armor and carried tools instead of weapons. He wasn't a soldier anymore, just a scavenger, a finder of lost things. But he had a rule: never ignore a distress call. This one was faint, broken, and very old. But it said, "Life detected, unknown species, help needed." He frowned. Well, hell, he checked the map. The signal came from X-97B. Stupid place, he muttered. Full of monsters. Still, he packed his gear, fueled his ship. Took off. The drop was rough. Jax landed near a river far from where the signal came from. His ship couldn't go deeper into the jungle, it would be torn apart. So he walked, boots squelched in mud. Bugs buzzed around his helmet. Something screamed in the distance. Jax ignored it all. He followed the signal. 3 days later, he saw the crash site. Broken trees, scorch marks, the remains of a strange pod. He walked around it carefully, scanning for life signs. Nothing. Then he heard it. A soft sound. Like breathing. He turned slowly. Behind a pile of roots, something moved. It was small. Bluish. With big eyes and wings that looked too big for its body. Jax froze. The creature stared back. Neither moved. Then the creature whispered, "Help." Jax blinked. What? It tried again. "Help. Me." Jax took a cautious step closer. "You can talk?" The creature flinched and backed away. "I won't hurt you," he said gently. It tilted its head. "Human?" Jax smiled. "Yeah. That's right, I'm human." The creature relaxed a little. Jax crouched down. "What's your name?" It thought. Then said, "Don't know." "Well," Jax said, "you look like a star in the dark. How about Star?" It blinked again. Star. It liked the sound. That night, Jax made a fire. Not because he needed it, he had a heat suit, but because light scared some of the bigger creatures. Star sat close, watching everything. You're smart, he said. Smarter than most things on this rock. She nodded. You're not from here, are you? She shook her head. Where's your home? She pointed up. Jack sighed. Great. Another lost kid. He looked at her. She looked back. Her eyes were full of questions. He patted the ground beside him. Get some rest, he said. Tomorrow we find out what the hell you are. Star curled up next to him, and for the first time since she arrived, she felt safe. The jungle woke with noise. Birds screamed. Bugs hummed. Trees groaned like old ships at sea. Jack sat up slowly, rubbing his eyes. His back was sore, and his boots were wet from dew. Beside him, Star was already awake. She stared at the fire which had burned low during the night. Her glowing skin pulsed softly, like waves under moonlight. Jack smiled. Morning. She turned her head. Morning? He chuckled. That's right. They ate from Jax's ration pack, protein bars and dried fruit. Star didn't like the bar much. She made a face and gave it back. Jax laughed again. Okay, not a fan. Got it. He pulled out a small knife and cut open a fruit he'd found earlier that day. It smelled sweet. He offered a piece to Star. She sniffed it carefully, then took a bite. Her eyes lit up. Good, she said. Jax nodded. Glad you like it. Over the next few days, they stayed near the camp. Jax taught her words. Simple ones. At first, fire, tree, water. Then more, danger, safe, help, friend. Star learned fast. At night, they sat together and watched the sky. She pointed at stars and made soft sounds. Jax guessed those were names from her world. You miss them? He asked one night. Star looked down. Yes, but gone. Jax didn't say anything for a while. He just sat beside her. I lost people, too, he finally said. Friends, family. Sometimes I still hear their voices. Star looked at him. You sad? He nodded. Yeah, but I keep going. Because someone has to. She touched his arm gently. I go too. He smiled. Yeah, we both do. One morning they heard something strange. A deep rumbling growl came from the trees. Not close, but not far either. The ground seemed to shake with each breath. Star stiffened. Her eyes widened. Jack stood up slowly. He grabbed his tool belt and motioned for her to stay behind a rock. Stay here, he whispered. She shook her head. No, he pointed again. Stay, please. This time, she obeyed. Jax moved quietly through the bushes. The sound grew louder. He reached a clearing and saw what made it. It was huge. 4 legs, thick as tree trunks. Its body was covered in black scales. Its mouth dripped with green slime. Eyes like burning coals scanned the jungle. Jax swallowed hard. He'd seen things like this before. Not alive. Just bones in old reports. Military tests gone wrong. He backed away slowly. Behind him a branch snapped. The creature turned its head. Jax ran. He burst into the camp just as Star climbed onto a log to see better. Run, he shouted. She didn't ask questions. She just followed. They sprinted through the jungle, dodging vines and jumping over roots. Behind them, the monster crashed through the trees, gaining ground. Jax grabbed Star's hand. Faster! They reached a steep hill and scrambled up. At the top, they collapsed behind a pile of rocks. Below, the creature stopped. It sniffed the air. Its eyes searched. Then, after a long moment, it turned and disappeared into the jungle. Jax breathed hard. That was too close. Star leaned against him. Thank you. He patted her head. Don't thank me yet. We're not safe. Later that day, they found shelter inside a broken machine half buried in the earth. It looked like an old lab or research station. Metal walls were rusted, glass windows were cracked. Vines grew over everything. Inside, it was dark and cool. Jax lit a small light. Not bad. We can rest here tonight. Star walked around slowly. She touched the walls. Her fingers left glowing, marks where she touched. Suddenly a voice crackled from a speaker in the corner. Warning. Life form detected. Begin scan. Jax jumped. What the? A red light blinked on the ceiling. It swept across the room, scanning them. Star stepped forward. Scan me. The red light focused on her. Identity confirmed. Subject, Kirill. Genetic, match. Welcome home. Jax looked at her. Kirill? She looked confused. First name, maybe? Jax frowned. So this place knows who you are. Star nodded slowly. I think I was made here. Jax sat down. Well, hell. They looked at each other. For the first time, Star wasn't just a lost child. She was part of something bigger. And now, the jungle wasn't just full of monsters. It was full of secrets. The broken lab hummed with old life. Lights flickered. Wires dangled from the ceiling. Dust floated in the air like tiny stars. Star, Kirill, walked slowly through the room, touching walls and machines, as if trying to remember something just out of reach. Jax followed close behind, eyes sharp, hand near, his belt where he kept his tools. Welcome home, the voice had said. But this wasn't a home. It was a prison. In the center of the room stood a tall glass pod filled with dark liquid. Tubes curled around it like snakes. Inside, something floated, something small, pale, and wrong. Star gasped. Jax stepped in front of her. You okay? She nodded, but her glowing skin dimmed. Not me. He looked at the thing in the pod. Yeah, I get that. They moved deeper into the ruins. Parts of the walls were covered in writing, symbols they didn't understand. But some screens still worked. They showed videos of creatures being tested, changed, made into monsters. One screen showed a child, not Kirill, but one like her, being chased by things with too many eyes. Another showed scientists talking, then arguing, then screaming, then silence. Kirill touched the screen. They made us here. Jax crossed his arms. Looks like it. She turned to him. Why? He sighed. People do weird things when they're scared. When they think they might die, they try to make something stronger than them. Her eyes got wide. I'm not strong. He smiled. Gently. You are. You just don't know how yet. Outside, the jungle stayed quiet for now. Inside, the two of them searched every corner. Jax found a storage locker with tools and old clothes. He took what he could use. Kirill found a mirror. She stared at herself for a long time. Her skin shimmered. Her wings twitched. Her eyes were big and full of questions. I look different, she whispered. Jax came beside her. Different isn't bad. She looked up. Am I human? He shook his head. No. But you're not alone either. She blinked. You're not afraid of me? He gave a short laugh. Afraid? Nah. Worried sometimes, sure, but never afraid. She smiled a little. Later that night, they sat near a fire outside the lab. Jax cleaned a tool while Kirill watched. She had been quiet since they left the building. You okay? He asked. She looked at her hands. I feel strange. Strange how? She tried to explain. Like there's something inside me. Like my body knows more than I do. He frowned. Could be fear, could be something else. She looked at him. What if I'm dangerous? He put the tool down. Then we'll figure it out together. She thought for a moment. Then she said, I want to learn. He raised an eyebrow. Learn what? Everything. About me. About this place. About why they made us. Jax nodded slowly. That sounds like a plan. The next day they went back inside. This time, Kirill led the way. She found a control panel that still worked. With careful touches, she brought up files. Some were locked, others were broken. But one file played. It showed a woman in a white coat. Her face was tired, her voice was soft. If you're watching this, Subject Kirill, you survived. That means we failed. Or maybe we succeeded. I hope you can decide which. You were made to live here, on X97B. This world was ruined long ago. We filled it with life that could survive anything. And we hoped you would be better than us. Don't trust anyone who comes looking for you. Don't let them take you. You're not a weapon. You're not a monster. You're something new. We named you Project Star, because even in the darkest places, stars shine. The screen went black. Kirill stood still. Jax watched her carefully. You okay? She whispered. I was made to survive. He nodded. Yeah. But you're not just surviving now, you're living. She looked at him. You helped me. He shrugged. Just gave you a hand. She hugged him suddenly, tight. He patted her back. Hey, we're in this together. But not everyone wanted them to stay hidden. Far away in the sky, something watched. A signal had been sent when the lab turned on again, and somewhere in space, someone received it. Target located. Prepare for retrieval. On the jungle moon, unaware, Kirill and Jax packed their gear. Tomorrow they would keep searching. Tomorrow they would keep learning. Tomorrow the hunters would come. But tonight, they were safe, and that was enough. The jungle was quiet again. Too quiet. Jax stood at the edge of their camp, looking into the trees. His eyes were sharp, his body still. He had spent years listening to silence, and this wasn't normal. Something had changed. Behind him, Kirill sat near the fire, cleaning her hands with wet leaves. She looked up. You hear something? She asked. He nodded slowly. Not yet, but I feel it. She joined him, ears twitching slightly. Her glowing skin pulsed like a heartbeat. Then, far away, there was a sound, a low hum, like a ship slowing, down in the sky. Kirill stiffened. They found me. Jax turned to her. You sure? She whispered. Yes. Without another word, he began packing. Tools, food, water, everything they might need if they had to run. Kirill helped fast. She had learned how to move quickly, quietly. She knew what to take and what to leave. They didn't have much time. That night the sky lit up. A small drop pod came down from the clouds. It landed not far from their camp, hidden by thick trees. The pod opened with a hiss and 5 figures stepped out. They wore dark suits. They carried weapons. Their faces were hidden behind masks. One of them spoke into a device on his wrist. Target is close. Begin search pattern. Another voice answered through the radio. Do not engage unless ordered. We need her alive. The leader nodded. Understood. They spread out into the jungle. Back at the camp, Jax and Kirill watched from the shadows. She whispered, They are soldiers. Jax frowned. Looks like it. She looked scared. They want me. He put a hand on her shoulder. They'll have to go through me first. She shook her head. No, you can't fight them all. He gave her a small smile. I don't have to win, just slow them down. She hugged him tight. Please don't die. He patted her back. I won't. Not today. They moved through the jungle like ghosts. Jax led the way, careful where he stepped. Kirill followed closely, staying low. They passed strange plants, broken machines, and bones half buried in the dirt. Then, without warning, the forest exploded. A creature jumped from the trees, a monster made of muscle and teeth. It landed between them and roared. Before Jax could react, one of the soldiers shot it. Boom! The creature fell, smoke rising from its chest. Jax grabbed Kirill's hand. Run! They sprinted deeper into the jungle. Behind them, the soldiers shouted. Footsteps pounded the ground. Lights swept through the trees. Kirill tripped over a root. She fell hard. Jax pulled her up. Come on! They reached a clearing, but more soldiers were waiting. One raised his weapon. Stop right there! Jax didn't stop. Instead, he threw a small tool from his belt. It hit the ground and sparked. Smoke filled the air. Go! He yelled. Kirill ran. Jax followed. More shots fired. Trees cracked. Leaves flew. But they kept moving. Later that night, they stopped to rest. They were deep in the jungle now. Far from the camp, far from the soldiers. Kirill leaned against a tree, breathing hard. Her wing was torn. Her hands were dirty. Jax checked her wounds carefully. "You're okay." She looked at him. "You got hurt too." He waved it off. "Just scratches." She touched his arm gently. "Why do you keep helping me?" He smiled. "Because someone has to." She looked down. "What if I'm dangerous? What if I hurt people?" He sat beside her. "Everyone has power. Doesn't mean they use it wrong." She thought for a moment. Then she said, "I want to know who I really am." He nodded. "We'll find out. Together." The next day, they kept moving. They found an old cave hidden behind vines. Inside, it was cool and safe. Jax lit a small fire while Kirill explored. She found a mirror-like stone on the wall. She looked at herself. Her skin shimmered differently now. Her eyes looked sharper, stronger. She whispered, "I'm changing." Jax walked up behind her. "Maybe that's not bad." She turned. "What if I become like the monsters outside?" He crossed his arms. "Then we'll make sure you don't." She smiled a little. "How?" He grinned. "Easy. You listen to me, and I'll teach you how to be better than them." She looked at him for a long time. Then she said, "Okay." Outside, the jungle stayed quiet, for now. But somewhere the soldiers were still searching, and soon they would find them. The jungle was no longer safe. Jax and Kirill moved quickly through thick trees and muddy ground. Every sound made them stop. Every shadow made them hide. They were being hunted. Behind them, the soldiers searched with machines and lights. They followed tracks, scanned the air, and called to each other through small radios. Kirill whispered, "They won't stop." Jax looked at her. "No, but we don't have to let them catch us either." She nodded. She trusted him. He had saved her once. He would do it again. That night they found shelter in an old cave. It smelled like wet stone and old leaves. Jax lit a small fire while Kirill sat nearby, watching the flames. She asked, "Why are humans like you so good at hiding?" He smiled. "Because we've been doing it for a long time." She tilted her head. "What do you mean?" He leaned back. "Humans. We started as small people on a big world. We didn't have wings or sharp teeth. We couldn't run fast or swim deep. But we learned how to survive." He pointed at his head. "We think. We plan. We make tools. And when someone stronger comes after us, we outsmart them." She blinked. "Like now?" He nodded. "Exactly like now." She thought about that. Then she said, "Then teach me." He raised an eyebrow. "Teach you what?" "To be like you." He chuckled. "You don't need to be like me, you just need to be smarter than them." She smiled. "Okay." The next morning, they began their plan. Jax knew how soldiers thought. He had been one once. He taught Kirill how to leave fake tracks, how to break branches in places where people would look. They built traps, small ones. One used vines to pull a heavy log onto the path. Another dropped sharp sticks from above. Kirill helped with something else. She left, behind glowing marks on the trees. Small, soft lights that could only be seen in the dark. It led the soldiers in circles. They followed the light. It never led them to her. One night the soldiers came close. Jax and Kirill hid inside a broken machine half buried in the ground. They covered themselves with leaves and stayed very still. Outside, voices spoke in low tones. "She has to be around here somewhere. This planet is full of monsters. If she's alone, she's already dead." Command says she's not alone. There's a human with her. Jax held his breath. Kirill did the same. They waited. After a few minutes, the soldiers moved on. Then did Jax and Kirill breathe again. He whispered, "See? We're not just running, we're winning." She gave a small smile. "I believe you." But the soldiers weren't the only danger. As they traveled deeper into the jungle, they saw signs of something else. Something huge. Footprints too big for any human. Trees snapped in half. Blood on the ground. Kirill stopped walking. Her skin dimmed. "What is it?" Jax asked. She whispered, "Something is hunting them." He frowned. "Them?" She nodded. "The soldiers. They are not alone anymore." He looked around slowly. Well, hell. Later that day, they heard a scream. Came from far away, but it was clear. Someone was hurt. Or worse. Jax looked at Kirill. "We keep moving." She shook her head. "No, we watch." He sighed. "You're starting to sound like me." She grinned. "Good." Carefully, they climbed a hill and looked down. In the clearing below, 2 soldiers stood back to back. Their weapons were raised, light swept across the trees. Then something jumped. It was fast. It was big. It had many legs and eyes that glowed red. The soldiers fired. Boom, boom, smoke filled the air. But the monster didn't die. It struck fast. One soldier screamed and fell. The other ran. The monster watched him go. Then it looked up, straight at Jax and Kirill. They ducked down. Heart pounding, Jax whispered, "We need to move. Now." Kirill nodded. They ran. Back at their camp, they sat near the fire. Kirill looked at Jax. "You said humans are good at surviving because we think." He nodded. She said, "Then why do we feel scared?" He smiled gently. "Because we know what can happen if we fail." She thought for a moment, then she said, "I'm scared, but I want to keep going." He patted her shoulder. "Then we will." Outside, the jungle stayed dark. The soldiers were still searching, and something else was hunting them both. But Jax and Kirill were still free, and that was all that mattered. The sky above X-97B was filled with ships. Big ones, sleek ones. Ships that didn't belong to the soldiers who had come before. These were faster, stronger, and they carried people who knew exactly what, or who they were looking for. Kirill watched from behind a tree as the new drop pods landed with soft hisses. Figures in silver suits stepped out, scanning the jungle, with glowing eyes and quiet machines. She whispered, "They're not like the others?" Jax crouched beside her. "No, these are the real hunters." One of the figures raised a small device and spoke into it. "Subject Kirill has been located. Begin capture operation." Jax grabbed Kirill's hand. "We need to run." But this time she didn't move. Instead, she looked at him. Her glowing skin pulsed brighter than ever. "No," she said softly. "Not anymore." They didn't run. They didn't hide. Instead, Kirill walked into the open. The silver-suited figures saw her and stopped. One stepped forward. Tall, calm, voice like wind through stone. "Kirill," he said, "you have survived longer than expected. You are safe now." Jack stepped in front of her. "She's not going anywhere with you." The figure tilted his head. "You are Jax Varn. Human. Former soldier. We know who you are." Jax narrowed his eyes. "Good. Then you know I don't back down." The figure raised a hand. More figures moved in, surrounding them. Kirill stepped forward again. "I want to know the truth," she said. "Why was I made? Why was I left here?" The figure studied her, then nodded. "You deserve answers." They were taken aboard one of the ships. It was huge inside. Bright lights, smooth floors. Everything felt clean and cold. Kirill looked around with wide eyes. Jax kept close. They were led to a room where many beings waited, some human, some not. They sat around a round table, watching Kirill with interest. A woman with white hair and sharp eyes spoke first. Kirill, you were created by your people, the Vari, as part of Project Star. You were designed to survive on X-97B, a world filled with life forms engineered for survival. You were meant to be their future, Kirill asked. Then why leave me alone? The woman sighed. Because we lost the war. Because we feared you would be taken and used as a weapon. Kirill's voice grew stronger. And now? What do you want from me? The woman looked at her carefully. We want you back. But we also fear what you might become. Jack stepped forward. She's not yours to take. Another being spoke, this one tall and covered in smooth armor. She is dangerous. She is evolving. If left unchecked, she could become a threat to all. Kirill looked around the room. You mean I could become something you can't control? Silence. She turned to Jax. They're afraid of me. He nodded. Yeah, that means you're winning. Back on the ship, Kirill was placed under watch. She wasn't locked up, but she wasn't free either. Jax stayed close. He refused to leave her side. Addie, Knight, she asked him. What if they're right? What if I am dangerous? He looked at her. Everyone is dangerous in the wrong hands. She thought for a long time. Then she said, I want to show everyone the truth. He smiled. Then let's do it. The next day, Kirill stood before the council again. This time she held a small device, one Jax had helped her build during the night. It connected to the ship's systems. To the galaxy, she pressed a button. Across the ship and beyond it, screens lit up. Millions of beings saw her face. She spoke clearly. My name is Kirill. I was born to survive. I was left alone on a world full of monsters. And I lived. She paused. But I did not live alone. A human found me. He saved me. He taught me how to speak, how to think, how to fight, not with weapons but with courage. She looked at Jax. And now, I ask the galaxy, will you see me as a monster, or will you see me as hope? Silence followed. Then across the network, messages began to appear. Humans wrote, she's just a kid, let her live. If she can survive that place, she deserves respect. She's not a weapon, she's a survivor. Even other species began to speak. She shows strength without violence. Maybe she is the future we need. The council met in secret after that. They argued. They debated. Finally, the woman with white hair came back to Kirill. We cannot return you to the Vari, she said. They no longer have the right. Kirill asked. Then what happens to me? The woman looked at Jax. You have two choices, she said. Return with us, live among your kind, or stay with him. Kirill looked at Jax. He gave her a small smile. It's your choice, he said. She took a deep breath. Then she said, I choose neither. Both adults blinked. She stood tall. I am not just Vari. I am not just human. I am something new. She looked at the screen where her message still played. I will decide my own path. Jax grinned. Now that was the girl he had saved. Kirill stood tall as the galaxy watched. Her message had spread like fire through space. Ships, stations, planets, humans and aliens alike saw her face, heard her voice, and felt something they hadn't expected. Hope. She was not just a child anymore. She was not just an experiment. She was a symbol. And now, she had a choice to make. The Vari Council offered her a place among them. They said she could help rebuild their people, return to their home world, and be honored as the last of Project Star. But Kirill looked at Jax. He gave her a small smile. It's your call. She turned back to the council. I will not go with you, she said. Gasps filled the room. One elder stood. You are one of us. You owe your people this chance. Kirill stepped forward. I was left behind. I was alone. But I was not forgotten. She pointed at Jax. He found me. He saved me. He taught me how to live. She looked around the room. I am not just Vari. I am not just what you made me to be. I am something new, and I will choose my own path. Silence followed. Then, slowly, someone clapped. A human diplomat. Then another. Then more. Even some Vari looked unsure. The white-haired woman from before stepped forward. "You are brave," she said. "Braver than many of us." Kirill nodded. "Then let me go." The woman studied her for a long time. Then she said, "So, be it." Back on the ship, Kirill and Jax walked side by side. He looked at her. "You did good." She smiled. "You helped me find my voice." He chuckled. "All I did was give you a push." They stood near the window, watching stars pass by. Jax asked, "So what now?" Kirill looked out into the dark. "We build something new." He raised an eyebrow. "Like what?" "A home," she said. "For those who have nowhere else to go." He blinked. "You mean, start a colony?" She nodded. "Not just for Vari, not just for humans. For anyone who has been cast away. Forgotten. Hunted." He thought for a moment. Then he grinned. "Well, hell, sounds like a plan." They didn't wait for permission. They found a planet far from war zones. A quiet world with rivers, forests, and open skies. It had no name, so they gave it one. New Star. They built homes, gardens, places for learning and healing. Word spread. Fast beings came from all over, some like Kirill, born different. Some were escaped experiments, some were refugees. Others were just tired of being told where they belonged. Kirill welcomed them all. She spoke to them, listened, taught, and when they asked who she was, she said, "I was abandoned, I was hunted, but I survived, and now I belong to myself." Years passed. New Star grew, schools opened, farms bloomed. Ships came and went. Kirill became known across the stars, not as a monster, not as a weapon, but as a leader. Humans respected her. Aliens listened to her. Even former enemies sent messages asking for peace. And always, at her side, was Jax. Sometimes, he trained new guards. Sometimes he fixed old ships. Sometimes he just sat under the trees and watched kids play. One day, Kirill came to him. She sat beside him. "Thank you." He looked at her. "For what?" "For saving me." He shrugged. "You did most of the work," she smiled. "Still, without you I wouldn't be here." He looked at the sky. "You're not just surviving now, are you?" She shook her head. "No, I'm living." He patted her shoulder. "That's all that matters." One night they stood on a hill together. Below, lights from the town shimmered like stars on the ground. Above, real stars blinked quietly. Kirill whispered, "Do you think they're watching us?" Jack smiled. "Maybe. Or maybe they're just waiting for someone like you to find them." She looked at him. "What if I leave? What if I travel farther?" He nodded. "Then take stories with you. Of this place. Of what we built." She touched his arm gently. "You'll come too, right?" He laughed. "Wherever you go, kid, I've got your back." She hugged him. And in that moment, the jungle moon, the soldiers and the monsters seemed very far away. Because here, on New Star, a girl once left to die had become a light in the dark, and the galaxy would never forget her.